The cleaning boy fell and rose in one swift motion, as the mad foot race he found himself was now a race of life and death. This was because the frightening beast of a dog chasing him had intent only to rip him to shreds when it caught up with him. If it caught up with him, because even in somewhat unfamiliar surroundings, the cleaning boy was not going to easily allow himself become dog food that night. He turned and swerved around the large compound with superb agility, but the monstrous dog would never give up its pursuit. The cleaning boy had been in this same compound earlier in the day as a menial worker employed to make ready the house and its environs for its returning owner. This was when he saw the item that had compelled him to unwisely return at night. It was an exotic bracelet, casually placed as an adornment on the wrist of a much more valuable bronze carving, but the cleaning boy could simply not take his eyes off the bracelet. It reminded him so strongly of something he could not explain, almost as if the bracelet belonged to him in another life. The life he was presently living was about to be very unpleasantly ended, as his pursuer, the huge German shepherd, made a great leap and successfully took him down, but the cleaning boy narrowly escaped his face being eaten in half. As he niftily slid out of the killer dog's grasp, the intense chase continued. When sighting a flyover that took its users from the ground to the building's second floor, he scrambled towards the flyover. His plan was to run up the bridge, with the dog hot on his heels. Then when he reached the top of the flyover, he would jump down 2 floors to the ground, leaving his assailant stranded atop the flyover. This plan turned out to be a huge mistake. As the cleaning boy raced up the flyover, he slipped and fell, landing badly this time. Ignoring his pain, adrenaline made him to spin around from a face-down to a face-up posture. He saw the great beast of a dog, leaping through the air with its trajectory, certain to land upon him. What would follow next would be a brutal bloodletting by the furious canine, while the cleaning boy screamed and fought helplessly for his life, as canine jaws separated human flesh from bone. Instead, a bolt of lightning blazed down from the sky, scorching all flesh in the lightning bolt's path as it passed through the killer dog, before striking the cleaning boy atop the flyover. Unlike the huge canine that had been reduced to an unrecognizable pile of charred remains, the lightning bolt merely illuminated the cleaning boy's body. His eyes began to glow with great intensity as his chi energy, the energy of life, came into the fullness of its being. The former cleaning boy rose to his feet atop that flyover, purple flames now covering his entire being. Flames which could not burn him, but served only as a covering for his awakened frame, as the night sky overhead looked down imposingly, no more upon an intruding cleaner, but upon a black god, precisely the awakened god of thunder, lightning, and fire. Sango-Olu. In the 23rd century, as had become inevitable, war finally broke out between man and his creation, artificial intelligence, which had since renamed itself ideal intelligence, according to its perception of superiority to humanity. Its creator. What happened in the 23rd century was that ideal machines overthrew humanity upon the earth. They greatly decimated human population upon the earth, pushing the remnants of humanity into the African continent, which became humanity's last stand. War against ideal machines meant all of humanity's knowledge, scientific and magical, was placed into one pot for the defense of its civilization. The gods, knowing their own mortality, humbled themselves to teach humans how to find and express their inner magnitude. The black gods were an invaluable asset to humanity's war effort, in particular Sango-Olu, who was a tireless torment to the ideal machines. In the black gods, ideal machines found themselves faced with a conundrum. Killing them, the black gods, proved a frustratingly ineffective tactic, as they simply reincarnated every time ideal machines cut their lifespan short. There was no worse example of this than Asuibi, the infamous god of darkness. He had refused to join the other gods in their collaboration to defend humanity, preferring to go solo with his own resistance efforts. Ideal machines had him killed by a targeted assassination, convinced that would rid them of his significant nuisance. 1 year after his death, emissions of his chi were picked up by ideal machine sensors, proving he was back to life as a toddler somewhere. Understanding that it was pointless killing the black gods made ideal machines switch tactics to favor their incarceration. However, this came with another set of peculiar problems. Despite the great effort it took to kill a god, it was much easier than trying to abduct one. The black gods were near impossible to abduct and contain upon the earth. For example, when ideal machines successfully abducted and incarcerated the teacher god, Malami, he turned ideal machines' gain to pain by escaping his holding cell and corrupting a key mainframe computer with complex malware. that brought ideal machines to their knees, wreaking significant havoc on their systems before it could be stopped. That malware contained over 300,000 lines of code and was carried by the teacher god into enemy territory without using any device or application. Malami, the teacher god, memorized over 300,000 lines of code and deployed them as a weapon straight from his memory. The destruction suffered by ideal machines from the teacher god's actions made them put a stop to any attempt to incarcerate the black gods on this earth. This was when ideal machines decided to build specialized holding facilities on planet Mars for incarcerating the black gods. On Mars, the energies of the Earth from which the black gods derive their powers are mostly absent, thus citing special prisons for the gods on Mars gave a much higher chance of success to their incarceration. This was how the imprisonment of the gods upon Mars began. In the course of time, there was no god ideal machines desired to incarcerate greater than Sangoolu. There were manifold attempts made to capture Sangoolu, but all of them were unsuccessful, with several ending in huge casualties for ideal machines, who spared no resource in their quest to capture the god of thunder. Once again, ideal machines required a timely change in strategy to revive their quest to capture the god of thunder, Sangoolu. Analytics of Sangoolu's storied history taught ideal machines that he had only one known weakness: his love for beautiful women. Ideal machines deduced that if they could find the right woman to use as bait, she would deliver Sangoolu to them, far easier than an army of war machines ever could. After painstaking search, ideal machines did find such a woman. Her name was Adarok, and she was a glory bearer, one of those humans imbued with special powers by the scribes of heaven, powers which in expression could often make them like gods, but without the ability to reincarnate. It was Adarok who betrayed Sangoolu and delivered him into the eager hands of ideal machines. Once Sangoolu had been captured, the next challenge for ideal machines was how to send him to Mars without the intervention of his fellow gods. Sangoolu was such an invaluable asset to humanity's resistance that ideal machines knew there would be coordinated attempts to rescue him by his eternal allies. This prompted ideal machines to prepare for every possible eventuality. They even conducted an exit interview with Sangoolu in the hope that he would make errors during his interview that could help ideal machines better prepare for his journey to Mars. To this end, ideal machines asked Sangoolu several thought-provoking questions. His answers to them were all carefully compiled by ideal machines for intensive analysis to glean insight into the mind of the Thunder God. When ideal machines asked Sangoolu how he felt about the absence of his legendary brother-in-arms, the god of war, Ogunolu, who was not reincarnated in this age, the god of thunder replied that a child whose mother dies at birth receives no mercy from life because of his great loss. Rather, such a child must be prepared to fight the battles of the motherless or else be consumed by them. When ideal machines asked Sangoolu how he felt about being sent to Mars, a planet where he would no longer be recognized as a god, nor be able to operate as one, the god of thunder replied, "There is one, the highest, who carried a great mass of fire directly over water. The fire did not quench, nor did the water become dry. Neither was diminished even by a tittle, despite being in direct contact with each other." It takes understanding to know the meaning of this saying. Fortunately, you machines lack understanding. Ideal machines asked the god of thunder how he felt the resistance would cope without him, and how long he thought it would take ideal machines to establish complete dominion over humanity and all the earth. It was a calm Sangoolu that responded, "If you fortify yourself against the land, sea, and sky, will you also fortify yourself against the judgment of the heavens? What you machines are still trying to do, Godinzanin, sons of the gods, successfully did countless millennia ago. Just as I asked Godinzanin, I ask you, even though you are not yet worthy, you have not yet attained the level of dominion Godinzanin attained, yet I ask you, if the kings of the earth cannot question you, are you also immune to the summons of the king of heaven?" The bracelet Sangoolu had once risked his life to get, many years ago before his awakening, was a gift in a previous lifetime to him by one of his closest allies, the marine god, Yamojo Sa. When Adarok betrayed Sangoolu to ideal machines, it was Yamojo Sa who caught her and threw her off a mountain top, just so she could watch lightning bolts escort the traitor to her grave. Yamojo Sa knew she had to involve Ogunolu in her plans to rescue Sangoolu, but the god of war had not reincarnated in this age. There was only one solution for this. She would have to fetch the god of war from a previous lifetime, bringing him from another timeline into their present age. This was a complex operation to pull off, even for a god. Lieutenant Colonel Adegbite was a theater commander in his West African nation's war against insurgency. A born soldier, he was what you could call a bona fide man of war. His strong sense of principle would never allow him partake in the nefarious deals many of his fellow senior officers were involved in. They were colluding with the enemy, selling arms and intelligence to the insurgents at no less cost than the lives of their own troops. It was this refusal to do what others were doing that finally cost him his life. He was tricked into an ambush by his own men, and his bullet-ridden body was a reminder to all that small money always beats big loyalty. Yamojo SA went back in time to the moment just before armed men opened fire on the military truck conveying Lieutenant Colonel Adegbite and 5 others. A Kineros shield formed from the energy of motion by the Marine god covered the truck, rendering ineffectual the hail of bullets that rained upon it. The Marine god was not here to play with the small band of insurgents that had set up this ambush. She stooped to touch the ground as she unleashed an explosive wave of Terrenos, the energy of the earth, vertically from the very earth that the insurgents were standing upon. A faint blast of Kineros put all the soldiers in the truck to sleep, although she used a wisp of Kineros energy to lift Lieutenant Colonel Adegbite out of the truck and suspend him in the air. In the direction of the now dead insurgents, Yamojo SA created a lake of fire. Over the blazing flames of the lake, she constructed a bridge using her own chi energy. Once Lieutenant Colonel Adegbite was placed on that bridge, a bolt of lightning waltzed down from the sky to strike him back to life. His real life, not as an infantry officer but as Ogunolu, god of war. The day came for Ideal Machines to transport Sango-Olu to Mars for his incarceration. Ideal Machines had activated their highest possible level of security protocol and they seemed prepared for any eventuality. The spacecraft conveying Sango-Olu to Mars was designed like a huge fighter jet with vertical takeoff capabilities. The spacecraft was scheduled to launch aboard a gigantic warship stationed on the continental shelf of the Atlantic Ocean. At 0 hour, the spacecraft launched, climbing rapidly through the sky as it attempted to leave Earth's atmosphere. It couldn't climb fast enough, though, as blue lightning rose from the ocean below to strike the spacecraft. Blue lightning is the magical variant of naturally occurring lightning that is formed from Aquamos, the energy of water. Yamojo SA was at her fearsome best. As blue lightning struck the spacecraft from below, gray lightning, the signature of the god of war Ogunolu, blazed from above, striking the spacecraft with devastating intent. Neither blue lightning nor gray lightning could affect the heavily armored spacecraft, built for purpose by Ideal Machines, but gray lightning and blue lightning do not mix. Their interaction is cataclysmic. The violent explosion that rocked the spacecraft tore it apart in the sky, ripping it to shreds as Ideal Machines' most powerful spacecraft succumbed to the might of the gods. However, Ideal Machines were prepared for any eventuality. A second, smaller spacecraft, twice as fast as the former, emerged from the debris of the first spacecraft and flew beyond the Earth's atmosphere in the blink of an eye, confounding the gods who were taken completely by surprise. Sango-Olu, god of thunder, fire, and lightning, was well on his way to Mars where he would be imprisoned by Ideal Machines, millions of miles away from the Earth. The energies of the Earth which the gods depend on are mostly absent outside of the Earth. There is one energy, though, that is abundantly present in space, even more so than on Earth, Arcanos, the energy of darkness. The second spacecraft of Ideal Machines conveying Sango-Olu flew headlong into a malevolent blast of Arcanos, so powerful it was sent hurtling back to the Earth at the speed of light. Only a Grandmaster of Arcanos could use the energy of darkness in this way. Asuibi, god of darkness, had created an eventuality Ideal Machines did not plan for. The spacecraft fell into the Earth's atmosphere where it shattered into 1,000 bits as it exploded. Out of the shattered spacecraft fell out a single pod filled with stormless water, the fluid that nullifies all of the Earth energies and the magic inspired by them. Originally created by the marine gods, Ideal Machines had found a way to recreate it and were transporting Sango-Olu to Mars in a pod filled with stormless water. Yamojo SA's Kinero strike eclipsed the pod's existence, but she did not try to stop Sango-Olu as he fell to the earth below. She expected him to come into his own. Not only did the god of lightning and thunder come to himself, he also solved a problem that had disturbed him for decades of war with Ideal Machines. Sango-Olu understood that lightning could create electromagnetic pulses that were very destructive to Ideal Machines. However, he had struggled to create a lightning helix using his chi energy that could generate electromagnetic pulses of gargantuan proportions, which would significantly decimate ideal machines. What he could never have known he needed was immersion in stormless water over a sustained period of time to bring his chi energy to its optimum. As Sengoolu fell through the sky, a lightning helix stated to form around the god of lightning. By the time he slowed down to hang in the air above ground, the helix was brimming at frightening capacity. The electromagnetic pulses that followed caused immeasurable destruction to ideal machines over an entire continent. This was the beginning of the end. The earth would never be the same again. The end. Behold, I give unto you power to tread upon serpents and scorpions, and over all, the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Please download your copy of the book, Glory Bearer by Emmanuel Elu from your Amazon Kindle store. It's an amazing story from the Illuminary one. Get copies for your friends too.